Welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? Appreciate y'all joining us today here on our live. We are live on YouTube, X, Rumble, and probably TikTok live too. We're going to talk about an issue that's very important to me. It's very appropriate on, the week of Veterans Day, and something that needs to be addressed. Veterans' rights, veterans' benefits are something that are often used as kind of a tug of war within Congress, within the Senate, within government. And it really shouldn't be that way. There were a lot of promises made to veterans. I know me as a veteran, when I joined in 98, there were promises made to me that if I stayed on to retire, or if I was injured in service, there were things that were going to happen. They were going to take care of me for the rest of my life. And to see veterans out there struggling to get these benefits, these things that they were promised their whole career, is really troubling to me. So that's why I brought my guest on tonight. He's a fantastic patriot. He's a veteran himself. you've seen him on just about every major news network. He's on Fox. He's on Bannon's War Room. He's on Newsmax. He's on all different types of things. So I'm just really proud that he chose to come spend the evening here with us and talk about his organization, Veteran Action. So without further ado, welcome to the stage, Mark Lucas. Welcome.
Hey Jay, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm so excited to have you here. This is something that I feel is so important, and especially during Veterans Week or Veterans Day week. I talk about this a lot in my spaces. There was promises that were made to me my whole career, and a lot of times, Congress or senators, they will run on the issue of protecting veterans' rights, and to the thing is once they get in office, a lot of them just kind of put it to the wayside, and they don't really fight for it in the way that they said they were, in order to get elected, which is troubling to me. And so for you to do this is really something that I think you're a hero in a lot of ways for doing this, because it's not very lucrative, right? Providing veterans with rights is not something that you're going to get lobbyist money from, which is another reason why it kind of falls to the wayside. It's not the most lucrative thing you can do. It's very you won't get to see the fruit of your labor, but I'm telling you right now, you're going to make a huge impact, and we just appreciate the things that you're doing. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us about your organization, please?
Well, Jay, I appreciate everything you've done for me going back to my time at the Article 3 project. You brought me on an X space for the first time that I've ever done it, and we were able to help confirm people like Pete Hegseth, Kash Patel. You're able to drive hundreds, if not thousands, of citizen contacts to U.S. senators to help us confirm those nominees for President Trump, which many people said were dead on arrival. So, during that time, Jay, Pete Hegseth is a personal friend. He was my predecessor at another veterans organization called Concerned Veterans for America. And so when President Trump announced on Truth Social that Pete was going to be the next Secretary of Defense, I went to A3P's founder, Mike Davis. I said, can we please support Pete? Because Article 3 project historically was more focused on judicial nominations, but Mike loves Pete Hegseth, and we went to bat for him. And during that confirmation process, I was talking to a lot of my friends in the military and veteran community, and these stories started popping up again about the Department of Veterans Affairs. And I started hearing all of these horror stories again. I remember telling my friends, I thought we fixed this in the first Trump administration. Because when I was the executive director for Concerned Veterans for America, I worked with President Trump and members of Congress to pass two of the most historic reforms at the VA. The first was the VA Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act of 2017. And then the second bill was the Mission Act. And I agreed with President Trump. I thought it was very simple that we should be able to hold bad VA employees accountable if they're not doing the right thing. Like if they let veterans die on secret wait lists, which happened at the Phoenix VA. But also we wanted to have veterans be able to have choice in their health care. If they were stuck in a failing bureaucracy at the VA, President Trump and I believe that they should be able to choose a private healthcare provider. So those two reforms were truly historic. It sounded like it was easy. Those are no-brainers. Grassroots people all across the country, they love our veterans. They believe that we earned these rights that our country promised us. In fact, President Abraham Lincoln, he made a solemn promise to the men who bore in the battle, to their orphan and to their widows, that they would be taken care of. And President Trump, along with Abraham Lincoln, wanted to deliver that. So during the Hegseth confirmation, we went backwards. I was talking to my friends, and under Joe Biden, a short 4 years, but a very dramatic 4 years, we started to see that those reforms that President Trump passed were being blocked, essentially, and that veterans were, again, being jerked around by bureaucrats. And the reason why this happens, a lot of people don't understand this, because if you talk to anybody on the street, if you ask them, hey, do you think a veteran should have choice in their health care? It's a 90% issue of support. You know, in politics, we say it's a 90-10 issue, meaning 90% of the American people support that, whereas only 10% don't. And we saw that for choice. But what these bureaucrats see is choice being a threat. They want to protect their budgets. They want to protect their facilities. They want to protect their jobs. And so we've seen that over the last decade, the budget for the Department of Veterans Affairs has doubled. Their facilities have increased. Their headcount is the size of the United States Army, but their care has not gotten better. So the American taxpayer has paid all of this money, made this major investment, and they believe in the mission of the VA, but the VA hasn't been able to deliver. So during that confirmation with Pete Hegseth, they said, okay, I understand how to fix this problem. You need to have some political muscle. And so I talked to my friends over at the White House, over at DOD, now the Department of War. And I said, hey, guys, I don't really want to do this. I never planned to do this, but I'll start a veterans organization. And we call it a 501c4. It's a political nonprofit that can engage on policy matters. I said, I can start a C4 and I can start going to work. And not only can I help veterans with healthcare, but I believe that we need to have a true America First veterans organization that will keep us out of forever wars and have a common sense foreign policy that focuses on the homeland, like securing the border, kicking out illegal immigrants, securing our big cities. Veteran Action, we support the National Guard going into DC, Chicago, Los Angeles, Portland. And so I said I could start this. And everybody loved the idea. They've supported me every step of the way. And so I was planning after the Hegseth confirmation to kind of go back in the private sector. But instead, I launched Veteran Action, I believe it was April of this year. And since our launch, like in the first 3 months, we recruited over 1,200 volunteers who contacted their lawmakers over 5,000 times in support of VA choice, in support of great nominees from President Trump, like Matt Lohmeyer, who's now the Undersecretary of the Air Force. I was able to see Matt Lohmeyer last week in DC. We also supported Sam Brown, who's Undersecretary of the VA for Memorial Affairs, and Bridge Colby over at the Department of War. So after 3 months, we were able to get those confirmations done. And we are supporting President Donald Trump's top legislative priority for veterans is the Veterans Access Act. And what this will do is it will codify, it will spell out the requirements for access to healthcare. So what Trump did with the Mission Act, he said veterans should get a choice. And they left it up to people in Washington to figure out, okay, what does that mean? It was a 20-day wait time, 30-minute drive. That was the requirement. And we saw that the VA wasn't following that. They're playing games with scheduling. So now we're like, okay, we're going to codify this. This is the 50-meter target, because you know as well as I do, Jay, that if you have a mental health crisis, you can't wait 20 days. You might not be able to wait 20 hours. So we're going to pass access, get that done, and then we're going to transition to full healthcare choice. So it's been a true honor and just a blessing for me to do this. God has blessed me and my family. You know, I've had great mental health. I came back with all my limbs. I served in Afghanistan in 2010. I was an infantry rifle platoon leader. I lost friends overseas. I lost more friends to suicide and to addiction. And because God has blessed me with health and a great family, I feel like I owe it to my battle buddies who I serve with to help them any way I can, because I have the ability to call a congressman. I've been texting senators today. I have access to the White House. I have access to the VA. What good is all that power and all that access if I don't use it for good, if I don't help other people? And that's what really Veteran Action is all about. And there's a lot of great veteran service organizations who may provide service dogs or may build homes for homeless vets, may try to address the mental health crisis that we have. Those are all great nonprofits. I support a lot of them. But what Veteran Action is, we are a smash mouth, grassroots political organization, because I understand that those nonprofits can help hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of vets, and that's great. But if you want to be able to help millions of veterans, millions today and in the future, you have to pass policy in DC. And that means you have to get into the streets and you've got to fight with these politicians and with these lobbyists because nobody else is going to do it. And so if we pass the Access Act, if we provide veterans true choice, we will impact millions of veterans.
Absolutely. You're doing a fantastic job, and it's Veteran Action is so easy to use. I used it just before we came on here. I sent a message to Buddy Carter, to John Ossoff, to Raphael Warnock. I sent them. It took literally 20 seconds for me to send them an email, to make a post about it, all through your website. It's super easy to use. If you haven't used it, use it tonight. Tag your congressmen, tag your senators in the comments tonight too. Let's get some eyes on this. I want to, before we jump further into other things, I want to play your commercial on here because I think it's really fantastic, and for people to see your YouTube page too, and they can follow you on other platforms. So I'm gonna pop that up here right now. All right.
America's heroes deserve more than waiting lines and broken promises.
We're allowing our veterans to get access to the best medical care available.
President Trump opened the door to real healthcare choice, but Washington politicians put bureaucracy before veterans. Congress must restore and protect that freedom. Pass the Veterans Access Act and give our heroes the care they earn.
Nobody deserves it more than our veterans.
Paid for by Veteran Action. America's heroes deserve more than waiting line.
Really awesome things that you're doing. You're doing this all on your own, putting all this together and to do it for veterans. What more noble cause could there be? I mean, just really fantastic things that you're doing. So talk to me about the Veterans Bill of Rights. I like the title, first of all, because Bill of Rights, right? Like I said, when I started this off, we were made promises, and they become bargaining chips later on down the road, or at least what I've seen, and I'll give you an example. I'm a retiree, so I'm entitled to TRICARE till the day I die. But then back, I don't remember the year, it was sometime maybe mid first Trump term, they were talking about, the Senate was talking about putting all retirees onto Medicaid, and that's BS. I didn't serve 20 years to get put on Medicaid. Yeah, I'm going to be entitled to something later on down the road, but I was promised TRICARE. If I served 20 years, which I did, I retired as a first sergeant in the United States Army, I was promised TRICARE. So for that to be a bargaining chip, for that to even be mentioned, is absolutely ridiculous. President Trump, thank God, said there's absolutely no way that we're going to do this. But it's just it's frustrating to us, veterans and retirees, to even have to have this discussion. And so to have this Bill of Rights, right? We have these rights that will never be touched after this gets put into place. And I believe it will, because we're going to get some eyes on it tonight. And, that gives me peace of mind that, if my son serves or something like that, he's going to be taken care of down the road, because I gave the best years of my life to the military. I spent 5 years in combat. I was, my most fit years, my most able years, I spent them in the military, and I gave them to my country. And so, granted, I came home in decent shape, but the thing is like, I was made some promises. And so that's what this veteran, Bill of Rights is going to do for us, I believe.
Yeah. Well, thank you for showing that video too. I'm very proud of that video. I scoured a lot of Trump speeches to try to find just the right lines to put in there. And that was a beautiful speech at the Rose Garden. I was actually at back in, I think that was in 2018. And, President Trump, he loves veterans and he understands the commitment that our country made. I believe that he will go down amongst Abraham Lincoln and George Washington as one of the greatest presidents in history. There's no better modern day president for veterans than President Trump. So he understands this issue. It's near and dear to his heart. And that's why all those hoaxes about him talking about suckers and losers, that veterans are suckers and losers, anybody who has been around President Trump knows that is completely out of character. He is so respectful to our military, to law enforcement. He shakes every hand. He's just a very appreciative man of the men and women who serve. So the Veterans Bill of Rights, this just happened. We just published it on Veterans Day. And my senior advisor, Darren Selnick, he's the author. And he's crafted this years ago. And he's shared it with the White House, with members of Congress. Everybody loved it. And so I hired Darren Selnick after he left the Pentagon. And he mentioned this to me, that he had this a few weeks ago. And he said, we just haven't published it. And he never had the opportunity. I said, well, Darren, we're going to publish it at Veteran Action. So within a couple of weeks, I sent it to some designers. I developed a really great PDF. And we literally published it and started shopping it around just over the last few days to members on Capitol Hill. And we've gotten Senator Sheehy supports it. He signed on. Senator Blackburn supported it. We had a Medal of Honor recipient. We had a former VA secretary support it. And then we had several congressmen support it. And we're just getting started. I'm texting people every day to sign on to the Bill of Rights. And what this is it upholds Abraham Lincoln's promise. And this is something that necessarily doesn't have to be codified, but we're going to make it happen because we've just seen decade after decade that veterans are failed. So we have 10 points on the Veterans Bill of Rights. And if you want to see it, you can go to veteranaction.org. At the top of the page, there's a red banner where you can click and you'll go to a landing page that shows the Bill of Rights. And also you can click on Take Action and you can ask your lawmakers to sign on to it. So I'll just walk through the points, if that's okay with you, Jay. The first one is freedom of choice. And that's veterans have the choice to choose the best healthcare provider for themselves, whether at the VA or in the community. And you'd be shocked. Like I said, 90-10 issue, 90% of the American people support veterans having choice in healthcare. We've seen that in multiple polls. Yet you have the VA who thinks that they can make the right healthcare choice decision for a vet. And we're saying, no. The choice is for the veteran. And I talk to veterans, not too many of them, but there are a few that say, I love my VA hospital. I say, hey, if you love it, stay there. But if you aren't being seen in a timely fashion, if you're not happy with the care, you should have that money, those benefits, follow you to your private healthcare provider. And we've started to see this huge movement across America with school choice. And there's a lot of parents that understand that, hey, I'm paying taxes. Why can't the money follow my child if I want to send them to a private school? And we've seen this passed all across the country. My home state of Iowa, it just passed recently. And so there's a lot of people that understand this voucher process. And really, we just want to provide healthcare choice. Number 2 on the Bill of Rights is dignity and respect. Veterans have the right to be treated with respect and dignity, regardless of their rank or their position, and expect timely and courteous service. Timely and courteous. So we have a 20-day wait currently for healthcare before you can go out into the private community. And we're starting to see that VAs, and everyone's different, but we're starting to see that VAs will play games with scheduling. They won't call people back, or it'll delay, or they'll reschedule to get outside that window. That lacks respect to our veterans. Number 3 is informed consent, that the veterans have the right to be fully informed of their care and treatment. Number 4 is the awareness of benefits. There's a lot of veterans who aren't aware of their rights and their benefits under the Mission Act, right? And we want to make sure that this Bill of Rights is published, that people know what their rights are. Access to benefits, that they've earned these. This, like you put so eloquently, Jay, like you spent your most healthy, vigorous years serving this country. You were willing to die for this country. At a minimum, we should be able to provide you access to benefits that you earned, right? You are not a pain in the rear end to the American people. You fought and defended our freedom. So a VA bureaucrat, if they don't understand that, then they should get the hell out of there. Healthcare without retaliation, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Privacy is really important because we have seen the VA potentially try to take firearms away from veterans with mental health conditions. And they're using this potentially as an opportunity for a gun grab. And we don't believe in that. Right to redress grievances. You should be able to file complaints. They should be responded to in a timely fashion. Transparent communication, point 9. And then number 10, an appeal, the right to an appeal in a fair hearing. So we believe that these are pretty self-evident, but VA bureaucrats disagree. So that's the Veterans Bill of Rights. At the top, I told you that we have 2 senators signed on, multiple congressmen, a Medal of Honor recipient, former VA secretary, and they just signed on in the last week. And we haven't even really been aggressively pursuing signers yet, but we will be. And it's going to be a great opportunity for even regular people at home. You can go to that website that Jay's got on the website, go to veteranaction.org and click on the top banner. It'll take you to a landing page for the Veterans Bill of Rights. Click on the Take Action button, and it's right here. So Jay, you talked about this great. So this platform, you can call, email, and post on social media to your lawmakers in less than 5 minutes. So when you log in, you'll be able to put your first name, last name, street address, email, phone number. You'll click sign up, and then you'll be able to contact both your home state senators and your home congressperson. And what this action alert will do is say, please sign on to the Veterans Bill of Rights.
Yep. And the reason, I know some people don't like to give out their information. So the reason why you have to do that is you have to verify that you fall under the congressman, the senator's district. So that's why it has to do that. And if you went to, I know a lot of people have contacted them directly on their web pages. You have to do the exact same thing. This makes it 10 times easier because you can go to one place and it blasts it out to all of them at once versus going individually to their pages. So if you're watching this live tonight, go to veteranaction.org and check it out because it takes literally seconds and it will post to your ex. You can email them, you can call them, you can do all these things in literally seconds. And, it makes a huge impact. And, it's funny because I'm pretty conservative or whatever, but I'm getting, I get emails from Raphael Warnock. I get emails from John Ossoff because I'm sending out these messages to them. They're still my senators, even though, I'm typically wouldn't vote for them. But the thing is they represent us. And so they need to hear from us. And so, send it out to them regardless of who they are. Let them hear your voice because, this is one way where it's very minimal, impact in your life or whatever, and you can make a huge impact in veterans' lives. And so it's very low, investment on your part, and you can make a huge impact. So please follow Mark, follow Veteran Action, check out their website, check them out on YouTube, Veteran Action, just a fantastic organization and really making it super easy for you to get involved and to make an impact. I just like to highlight the people that are, putting in work, that are doing things, out of the goodness of their heart. And you're really a hero in my book. And I appreciate you. We got 2,000 people watching right now. Obviously, we got a lot of eyes on this and for good reason. Repost the stream and let's get Mark out there. Let's help him out and let's get, help some veterans.
Hey, Jay, one thing I want to let you know is I've worked in politics for a long time, grassroots politics, where, I would knock on doors. I'd make patch through phone calls to Senate offices. I would build grassroots armies. And I would have lawmakers or their chiefs of staff call me and say, Mark, can you please make the call stop? Like, we get the point. Like, we're going to vote yes. And I always tell them, like, the calls aren't going to stop until the vote tally is done. Right. And so this really works. And, some pushback I receive from some people are like, well, I live in Illinois, or I live in New York State. My senators are terrible. They're Democrats. They'll never listen. You have to keep the pressure on. And on these veteran issues, sometimes they break bipartisan. And we saw this back in 2017 and in 2018, particularly with the Accountability Act, where we put so much pressure on these senators, like Bernie Sanders, for instance, where they had to support it. And so you can go there and you can email them, call them, and post on social media, but you can go back on the website and do it again next week. I tend to go in there and I'll reactivate and email those guys and text them or post on social media. And I'll just kind of do it maybe once every few weeks or so, especially right now, now that the government's back in session. It's good for these guys to see that, right? Everybody's working. They look at those emails. And Jay, you're absolutely right. The reason why you enter your name and your address is because they want to know you live in their state. So I've been able to put together tens of thousands of contacts with other organizations in the out of state senators, and they just don't care. Like, yeah, that's an effort from all across the country. Doesn't matter. But when they see Jay in Georgia emailing and his address, they take it very serious. And so this is very effective. And for the people that are joining, if you go to veteranaction.org, take the Take Action button, our Action Center is a proven platform. It's the same process I used to help confirm Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh. It's also the same platform I used to help Pete Hegseth get confirmed as our Secretary of War. It's a proven model. Lawmakers know it. Their chiefs of staff know it. Their staffs understand it. And so when you continue to pressure their offices, they will respond.
Yeah, if you do anything, if you're watching tonight, please, if you do anything, go to Mark's webpage, go to his X page, and send a message to your senators, send a message to your congressman, because it's too easy, and there's no reason not to. It doesn't cost you $1. It doesn't cost you anything. You can just do it, and it takes seconds, and you don't have, like, you can call them. You don't have to. You can email them. You can post it to your X page. And, I did the same thing today. I went through the whole process, even though I've done this a million times on Mark's page for his confirmations. I've done it through the Article 3 project. I've done it all because it's a flawless system. It really is just, you guys have done a fantastic job putting this together and making it easy for regular people to take apart, because, I have people that, that come into my spaces and stuff, and, they're disabled and stuff, and they can't, be out there on the front lines, campaigning and stuff like that. And they're like, how can I get involved? How can I get involved? Well, it doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing or whatever. If you live in America, you're a United States citizen. Even if you're living abroad or whatever, you can take action right now. And it doesn't matter your physical capabilities. It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, it doesn't matter anything. You can take action right now. So
Jay, remember your congressman, is it Buddy Carter?
Buddy Carter. Yep.
Well, just to tell a story of how this platform works, I saw Jay on Twitter using the Veteran Action platform, and he called out Buddy Carter, say, hey, it'd be great to have you jump on the bill. I responded to your tweet or your X post, and I said, I sent a link of the bill with all the co-sponsors. I said, it'd be great for Buddy to jump on. And he filed in support of that bill. He co-sponsored it the next day.
That's what it's all about. I don't really care. Like, I'm not here to be monetized or whatever. Like, doing that was one of the coolest things that I could do with this platform. I have over 100,000 followers. And for me to get him to co-sponsor a bill because I tagged him in a post, because I sent out this email to him, is that's it right there. That's mission accomplished. I cannot do anything better than that with this, this gift of this, huge X handle, you know, and so that was it for me, man. That's what I live for. I love that stuff, and that's why I wanted to platform you too today, is, you know, to help get this out there, because I know my followers are gonna you know, use your platform to send messages to their congressmen, their senators, and thank God for that, because they can do the same thing that I did right there, and show what it's all about.
I love telling that story, Jay, because like I've been working in politics for most of my adult life, and like it never gets old to see a normal citizen move a congressman, and to see it in almost real time. It was hilarious because they pay attention. A lot of people, they think they post on X and it just kind of goes into the ether. No, I know for a fact. I was just in Washington earlier this week, and you know, I've got maybe 10,000 followers on X. I'm not a big deal on social, but all these people were coming up to me and saying, I see what you post on social media. They might not like it, they might not retweet it, but they're seeing it, right? And when guys like you, Jay, and Kimmy, and these others who have been so supportive of me and retweeting all of my stuff, because I send you guys my posts because I'm trying to get as much action on this bill as possible. People are seeing it, they're feeling it. And the grassroots on these social platforms, it's the new form of grassroots, right? And there's a lot of these big bloated political organizations that keep on doing the same things over and over and over again. They just say, well, I'm going to do a bunch of TV ads and a bunch of mail like 6 months before election day, right? Whereas that's beneficial at times, but what's way more effective, and I'm not just talking about winning elections, I'm talking about passing policy to help veterans, right? You just have to be consistent in contacting your lawmakers and letting them know, holding their feet to the fire. Because all these politicians, they tell us how much they love veterans. I mean, look, we just had Veterans Day this week, on the 4th of July, on Memorial Day. They always talk about, oh, I love my vets. But then they go to Washington and they don't do anything about it. So this bill, the Veterans Access Act, the White House told me they wanted to pass it before Veterans Day so that we could have a bill signing ceremony with President Trump at the White House. That was the goal. And I kept on putting out these posts saying, we got 55 days until Veterans Day. We got 40 days until Veterans Day, trying to beat this drum to let people know, like, hey, we've got to get this bill out of committee. We've got to get it synced with the House and the Senate, and we've got to get it to a floor vote. We need to move, because I know how long it takes for these things. And then Chuck Schumer and the Democrats, they wanted to prioritize healthcare for illegal immigrants, and they shut the government down. Well, how many veterans died between the government shutdown and today? How many veterans are going to die tomorrow because they can't get access to health care? I've talked to people that they're community care providers. A couple of my good friends, they run several clinics that specialize in veterans who have addiction problems and mental health issues, right? They are going out of business because the VA stopped referring veterans to help them. Last year at this time, they had about 25 veterans in beds. They're helping them out. Today, they have 0 because they had to shut down their business because the VA is intentionally not referring people to community care. So my friend called this patient who he had seen, and the patient had a great journey as clinic, left, everything was good, but then he relapsed, which is normal. And the VA would not refer him back to that community care clinic. And my friend caught wind of this, and he called the service member's wife. He said, hey, I heard you're having issues getting a referral. Don't worry about it. Just bring him on in and we will scholarship you. You don't have to pay for anything. We'll figure it out. His wife said, I'm sorry, but it's too late. I found my husband dead in the bathtub last week. So how many freaking veterans are dying because Congress can't get their head out of their ass, get into session, and pass this bill? How many veterans are dying every single day because a bureaucrat with no name, has never been elected, says, you know what, I'm going to go against the law and I'm not going to refer this veteran to community care? There's another story of a vet in the South was having problems going to the VA. He was blind, and the person on the phone wanted him to drive to his appointment. And the guy's like, do you not understand? I'm blind. They're like, go to this clinic and we'll have a bed for you. And meanwhile, there's a bed right down the road. And the community care provider was willing to give them access to that bed that night. Those are the type of games that are being played.
Yeah, it's, and they're used to, getting negative feedback, right? They don't often get, somebody asking for something positive or whatever. And there's no negative to this in my mind. There's really no, because they can say that they're supporting veterans, which they would be when they sign on to this. And there's really no reason for them not to. It doesn't impact anything that they're doing. It doesn't hurt them. It doesn't, and it's a win-win for them, and it's a win-win for veterans. So that's why this is important. If you're watching tonight, please use Mark's platform and send a message to your congressmen and your senators, because it's a win-win for them. It's a win-win for veterans, and it's positive change that we're trying to enact. There's no reason for them not to support. There's not going to be anybody that comes to them and say, "Oh, you supported veterans, we're going to vote you out." No, it's a positive for them. So why wouldn't they do it? And it's very little impact for them. All they got to do is vote for it. All they got to do is sign on to this thing, and they can help us, make a positive change for veterans. You see people posting about, why do we have homeless veterans when we're sending all this money overseas? Why do we have homeless veterans when we have, all these different things going on or whatever? Well, this is a way that, we can help take care of those veterans. We can get them the care that they need, and we can, enact positive change with very little to do, because Mark has done the legwork for us.
And Jay, we just have to change the politics. There's been people complaining about the VA for decades, and I'm a guy of action, right? So when I hear there's a problem, I want to work the problem. I always told people that as an infantry platoon leader, I was a problem solver. That's really what I did overseas. And so I see the problem, I know the solution, and it means that we have to change the politics. I'll tell you, Republicans are just as guilty as Democrats. I get more upset with Republicans because they talk this big game, like Congressman Don Bacon in Nebraska. He's a super vet. I mean, if you go to his X profile, he's got a medal in there. He's got all this stuff. He's just a super vet. Like, he's probably the type of guy that camps out at Applebee's starting in the morning of Veterans Day, right? He's that type of vet. Now signed on to this bill. How could you be such an advocate for veterans and not support President Trump's top legislative priority for vets? And there's a lot of Republicans not on this bill. And there were some veterans that weren't on this bill. Well, why is that? Because they're not paying attention, right? Jay, if you or I are in Congress, I know both of us don't want to be in Congress. It's a terrible place to work. But if we're in Congress, we would be talking to our staff saying, what are the top issues right now for veterans in the House Veterans Affairs Committee, in the Senate VA Committee? I want to make sure that we are fixing these problems, right? That'd be top on our list. Well, if you talk to people on Capitol Hill, they call the VA committees like a C committee, like Alpha Bravo Charlie, like it's a lower tier committee. Nobody wants it. So they all want finance. They all want judiciary. They all want armed services. Those are the most attractive committees. And this staffer was telling me, she's like, yeah, nobody really wants the VA. Yet all these people in Congress, they want veterans to vote for them. So we can complain about it, or we can just take action. And that's what I'm going to do. We're going to change the politics. We're going to make it impossible for these people to ignore veterans. Now, we're not going to change it overnight. It's going to take some time. But I'll tell you, Veteran Action is going to be playing very hard in the midterm election, 2026 next year. I live in Iowa. We have the first in the nation Iowa caucus. We will be heavily involved in setting policy conversation in the 2028 presidential election. We'll be in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and we're going to be asking all of these presidential candidates, have you signed on to the Veterans Bill of Rights? Do you support veteran healthcare choice? Do you support accountability to fire VA employees who allow veterans to die on wait lists. We have to change the politics. It's possible. If you look at the Article 3 project, before Mike Davis and I really started working grassroots efforts in the Supreme Court lane in the judiciary, not too many people in the grassroots paid attention to the judiciary. We changed the politics because we talked about the lawfare that was being waged against President Trump. We talked about these out of control and radical judges. Mike Davis and I would go on the war room constantly and talk about how we need to confirm good judges. And an issue that the grassroots didn't really partake in that much, which was judicial nominations. Then we started recruiting thousands of people who took hundreds of thousands of actions. We're going to do the same thing for veterans. I can tell you that the grassroots, you know this, Jay, they love vets. They love them. Donors, they love vets. Everybody loves vets. And we need to make sure that voice is heard. And unfortunately, Congress needs to feel the pain.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, this is the way to do it. So this, getting out there, making them hear your voice. This is the way to do it. It's super seamless, and it's for a good cause. I tried to bring up the Bill of Rights. I got the PDF version, so it's.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Otherwise, I would have put it on the screen. It doesn't allow me to. But yeah, I just appreciate what you're doing, and yeah, you just. Really a fantastic organization, Veteran Action. You started from nothing. Literally, what was it, about like 7 months ago or something like that? Started from absolutely nothing. It had no followers, nothing, and you started from scratch, and now it's up and running, and it's doing things like this to help veterans. Just really awesome things that you're doing, man.
Well, all the glory goes to God. I mean, I couldn't have done it without his grace, because I was praying about this before the launch. I wanted to make sure that this was his will, and I wanted to execute at a high level, right? Because when you start an organization, you're going out on a limb, right? And by God's grace, Politico ran an exclusive story about our launch. We recruited all of those volunteers. Matt Lohmeyer himself and Sam Brown both publicly acknowledged Veteran Action's work on behalf of their confirmation. And it wouldn't have been possible without the grassroots. This is a grassroots organization, and it's just been incredible to watch. And when you have a really important mission, like when you're focused not on yourself but on others, it's hard to fail. One of my favorite books I read as a young infantry rifle platoon leader before I went to Afghanistan was by Pete Blaber. He was a Delta Force commander in Afghanistan early on with Operation Anaconda. He wrote this book called The Mission, the Men, and Me. And that book was foundational to me in my leadership approach. I knew I was always going to put the mission first, because to me, the mission was sacred. And so for Veteran Action, the mission is to help veterans. And then second priority is the men, right? The mission, the men, and me. And those people, I'm just, it's me and Darren Selnick. We're the only two people working for Veteran Action. But our army are guys like you, Jay, and the grassroots. And I respect your time. I want to make sure when you engage on our website, that's easy to use, because we've got parents and grandparents. We got people with real jobs. We have people staying up late tonight on a weeknight to hear about Veteran Action. When you go to our website, I want to be able to maximize your time. So when you go to our platform, it's easy. 5 minutes to contact all your lawmakers. And then me, the mission, the men and me, I'm a way distant third place, last place. I want to pour myself out for others, because I know that there are veterans right now, as we're talking, that feel hopeless. They have despair. I kind of caught myself. I felt guilty. It was about a month ago, where I was working my butt off, building these websites, doing these videos, doing media hits. And I was in my chapel. It's right down the road. I'm a Catholic. I go to Catholic Mass. I try to go every day. I'm in the chapel. I remember, I'm not actually praying for these guys. I'm praying for Veteran Action. I'm praying to do good work. But now every day I pray to God for a veteran who's hopeless right now, who's despairing. Lord, please save his life. If he has a problem getting to the VA, please allow him or her to get help, right? That's what this is all about. And if you are focused on the mission and you're focused on others, you're going to be successful. And nobody, like President Trump said in that video that you showed, nobody deserves it more than our veterans.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming up in the military, I didn't realize, you would hear people talk about the suicide issue or whatever, and it didn't hit home for me. It was just something that was very distant to me or whatever until it started happening to people around me. One of my staff sergeants killed himself. One of my platoon leaders killed himself. My old platoon sergeant killed himself. My old roommate killed himself. It's crazy how many people are really struggling, and it didn't really hit home to me until I started to experience it myself. But it is real and it's raw, and when they're talking about the 22 a day, they mean it. It is so many people struggling out there, and the things that we went through. And I brought this up yesterday in Angela Belcamino's podcast, because she's a mental health therapist. But one of the things that I brought up was, I was a Black Hawk crew chief, and Black Hawk crew chiefs and pilots, we really cannot go to mental health while we're in service. We cannot, because it will ground us. And so that flatlines your career. And so a lot of people do not get the help that they need, and they bury it and they wait until they get out of service. And then now, once you're out of service, you have to work, you have a family to support, you have a job, you have all these different things. And it's really hard if, you have a VA system that's fighting you to get yourself the help that you need. You've already let it go far too long. And now to have a system that's fighting you, that should be supporting you, you can see how it could spiral out of control very quickly. And so that's why this is very important. The other issue is, while in service, it should be treated like healthcare. You should, if you need to go see a mental health specialist or whatever, it should be treated like a sprained ankle or something like that. It shouldn't flatline your career. It shouldn't be something that downs you as a pilot or a crew chief. I know, some special operations too, they would face the same thing where they would pull them out and they wouldn't be able to do their job anymore. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be looked more as like healthcare. You need to take a knee for a minute and then you can get back in there. So that's a two-part issue, but you're fixing the backside of the issue, and so that's awesome.
Well, Jay, you made a great point. If you're a veteran who is struggling with alcohol or substance abuse, or you have family issues and you're feeling despair, and you go to a VA hospital and they create roadblocks for you and they can't get to see you for like 30 days, that will drive, and it has driven many people to suicide, because they're thinking to myself, I was willing to give everything for this country. I'm thinking about killing myself. The VA is supposed to help me. I hear the VA secretary and I hear all these politicians say that they're going to be there for me, right? They've got a suicide hotline. But when I go to the VA hospital and I want to talk to somebody, they don't want to talk. And this happened to a sailor in Texas. At the Audie Murphy VA down in San Antonio. This person actually wrote a book with his father on veteran suicide. And he went to the Audie Murphy VA hospital. All he wanted to do was talk to somebody. And they wouldn't talk to him. They wanted to give him more pills. So he shot himself in front of the VA. That's to send a message. And so when guys are on the brink, the VA is supposed to be there to help them. And I hear that the VA employees, they take offense. I think 50% of suicides are conducted by guys who have no affiliation with the VA. And the VA takes offense at that. Like they think they could help them, right? And there's a big part of me that just wants to say, maybe you helped cause it. Maybe they don't want to go to you because they heard their battle buddy talk about all the problems the VA created for them, right? So that's why access is so important. And if you have a great VA hospital, they can help you, go there. And God bless them. And I know there's a lot of great VA hospital providers and a lot of great clinicians. There's nothing against them. It's usually the bureaucrats who are 2 or 3 levels above them. But if you can't be seen, if you can't be helped, then they should let you go across the street to a private healthcare provider. It's that simple. The American people support this. President Trump supports this. The VA secretary supports this. It's a no-brainer. We just need Congress to get back to work and to pass this. We need Republicans and Democrats to support the Veterans Access Act.
Yeah, it should be bipartisan. It's a win-win. I don't see how you could not support it, and it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. It really, it's they're conservatives, there are liberals serving in the military, and we made a promise to them all that if you did these things, we're going to take care of you on the backside, and so we owe it them.
And then also, what Veteran Action is promoting is an America First foreign policy. And I joined the military after 9/11. I wanted to kill some of the monsters that were responsible. I was telling some people the other day, as a young man, 9/11 forever changed my life. I had no plans of ever joining the military. And when the Twin Towers fell, I knew that day was different and it was going to change my life forever. And so a bunch of guys like you and I, Jay, we decided to serve. And I believe that our service was incredible, even though I'm conflicted. The global war on terror, I think we can all agree, was a train wreck. But we were proud of our service. We were willing to give our lives for something that was bigger. And we were sold this fake promise that, hey, if you guys go overseas, you can fight the radicals over there. So we don't have to fight them back here. Right. And then they lied to us about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Everything was predicated on a lie. However, our service was courageous. Right. We never lost any fights, or very few fights. It was always the politicians that lost. And when I got to Afghanistan, I got there in 2010. It was 9 years after the initial invasion. I quickly realized that we were losing. We were surging forces 9 years after 9/11, which tells you that you're losing, right? And so I believe I have a responsibility to stand up and to tell people no more forever wars. And if we send a young man or a young woman overseas, we should be able to explain to them in less than 30 seconds why they're going, what the mission is. We should be able to explain to their mother, to their father, to their spouse, this is the mission. This is why your service member is going. It should be that simple. And right now, we have a lot of problems here at home. And Jay, I talk to veterans every day all across the country. We are very excited to defend our southern border. We are excited not to let these radicals take over New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. We want to secure the homeland. And if you talk to an 18 or 19-year-old private, you ask them, what's the number one priority when you leave the wire on a mission? They'll tell you, sir, we've got to maintain 360-degree security. Where our northern border, our southern border has been wide open. We've let in known terrorists. There's probably sleeper cells all across the country. There's a terror attack that was subverted in Dearborn, Michigan. We have to secure the homeland. We've got to stop chasing these revenue streams for the military industrial complex. And we've got to focus on America first. And so Veteran Action will make sure in the 2028 presidential election that every candidate who's running for office subscribes to an America First foreign policy. And if they don't, we'll hold them accountable, because we cannot recreate the same mistakes that we saw in Afghanistan and in Iraq. We as war fighters, we were trigger pullers. We lost men, not just in combat, Jay, but like you talked about, we lost more friends here with those invisible wounds. We have a responsibility to tell the American people what we endured and try to prevent it in the future. I joke, Jay, I feel like Mel Gibson from The Patriot, right? With his young boys who wanted to fight. And you're warning them, like, we understand the cost of war. So when we go, we better be damn sure on the intelligence, and we better understand the mission, and we better have an exit strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, you saying that or whatever, it probably, if we enact this, if we implement some positive change, I know a lot of parents will feel better about their kids serving too, because nobody wants their kid to go to war. Let's be honest. Nobody wants their kid to be in harm's way, but we have to, somebody has to do it. And the thing is if you're doing it for the right reason, you're doing it with, uh, with a country that is supporting your efforts and it's for a good cause, then it's a whole different story than if you're just doing it just to make somebody money or just on a haphazard decision or to flex or something like that. That's really not what this is about. We want to keep the homeland safe. We want to keep our families safe so that we don't have to do these forever wars, so we can keep our country secure and not have to worry about this crap anymore. So,
and then also providing quality health care is a part of national security, because in order to have an army, in order to have a fighting force, you have to be able to recruit service members. And if these young men and women have grown up and they saw what the VA did to their dad or to their uncle or to their aunt, they're going to think to themselves, well, why would I want to join the army if I saw how bad they treated them?
Right.
If my uncle went over there and almost gave up everything, came home, was suffering, and they let him die, and he committed suicide, why would they ever want to join? So not only is the healthcare problem an issue for people's health today, it creates a national security issue in the future, because we need to have a army that's ready to serve. And by God's grace, Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, they've reinvigorated the military, restoring the warrior ethos, getting rid of all this woke crap. And now we're starting to see record recruiting across all the services.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I like most about Pete Hegseth is you got tactical, organization, and strategic level leaders. Well, Pete is closest to the tactical level as we've ever had in the Secretary of Defense, now Secretary of War. And the reason why that's important, why that's a good thing right now, is because he knows what's going on the front lines. He knows what's going on with the troops. He knows what is happening with units in these, some of these woke initiatives and stuff like that they're pushing. He knows what's going on because when you get up to the general level or whatever, a lot of these guys are politicians at this point. They're military commanders, but the thing is they're out of touch with what's going on with the privates, with the sergeants, with the first sergeants and commanders. They're out of touch with a lot of the things that they're dealing with. And so that was one of the coolest things for me is with Pete Hegseth, because I know he gets it. He's not that far detached. He's not that far removed, and he knows exactly what's going on. He knows what it's like. It's cool for me to see him go out and do PT with the companies and the battalions out there, because that's what we were taught to do as leaders too. I know I was. And so that was one of the main reasons why I wanted him to become the Secretary of Defense and now Secretary of War. He's exactly what we needed, as a breath of fresh air.
It's funny to hear these general officers, who have their own private chefs. They have this huge staff. They have their own fiefdoms. Then they look down on Pete Hegseth because he comes from a junior officer background. Well, the junior officer background, we don't have time to waste on frivolous matters, right? Like as a platoon leader, like Pete was in combat, you have to focus on what I call the big four: shoot, move, communicate, and stop bleeding, right? Guess what doesn't make the list? White rage and transgender and all this other crap that they force down our throats in the military. So that junior officer mentality, Jay, that you just talked about, is so important, because those young privates and those E4s and those team leaders, those staff sergeants, like, they always said that the NCOs are the backbone of the Army, and I 100% agree. Those general officers have lost their way. They used to be like us, right? They grew up in the military, but as they get to like their 05s and 06s and above, they become politicians. They become soft, and they become more focused on career preservation. Whereas those young people like Pete, they knew the true cost of combat. They had to pull triggers, they had to pick up body parts, they had to actually conduct missions. And I think it's a very healthy change to have a guy like Pete Hegseth running the Department of War. We're just very fortunate to have that. And I can tell you all those young enlistees that are coming in, they're coming in because they see that. They see a person unlike General Mark Milley and Lloyd Austin, who had that stupid mask on and the face shield, and Lloyd Austin was grossly overweight and he went AWOL, didn't tell the president of the United States they had to go to the hospital. Like a stark contrast between Lloyd Austin and Pete Hegseth. And that's why we're seeing those recruiting numbers. And then you got a guy like Donald Trump, who believes in peace through strength, right? He's willing to escalate things, but he also understands how to back off and close a peace deal. I served under President Trump, President Obama, and Biden and Bush. And President Trump was by far and away the greatest commander-in-chief I ever had. And I volunteered to go over to South Korea at the height of the crisis with Kim Jong-un, back when KJU was lobbing all those missiles. And President Trump, he escalated the rhetoric. You remember he said that my button's bigger and it actually works. And when I volunteered to go, I thought we were going to war. And that's the only reason why I volunteered to go over there. And my brigade combat team, we were on the TIBFID. We were going to be activated if we went to a major war there on the Korean Peninsula. But then when I got over there and when Trump started de-escalating and started talking to Kim Jong-un, all of a sudden peace broke out, right? And now President Trump is talking about KJU like he's a great friend, right? And they enjoy each other's company. I think it's good for the president of the United States to have an open line of communication with people who have nuclear weapons. So you're able to see that peace through strength. And the young soldiers, they saw that. And they're like, that guy knows how to negotiate. He was willing to say that Iraq was a big, fat mistake. I trust him. I trust Pete. And I trust the direction this country is going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just, I served under Bush. Well, I served under a bunch of different presidents. When I started, I served under Clinton. And that's how old I am. I know I look young, but I served under Clinton, Bush, GW. I served under Obama. I didn't serve under Biden. I served under President Trump, but President Trump by far had the best ROE out of any of the commander-in-chiefs that we had. And I served under him in Afghanistan, and it was a tough deployment, but it was my best deployment because of that fact. And we were in Kandahar and we were in the Helmand province. We were getting it with the Taliban every other night. And so it was just one of my best deployments because the ROE made sense. The ROE was, there to protect us and to defend, Americans and the things that we had going on over there. So I appreciate him for that because it was by far my best deployment. So it's just, and little known fact too, you were talking about, after 9/11 and stuff like that. So I used to be in the Coast Guard. So I served 4 years in the Coast Guard, and I was in the Coast Guard on 9/11. And I'm actually pretty proud of my service in the Coast Guard. I love serving in the Coast Guard, but after 9/11, I saw everything that happened. And so that's why I joined the Army, because I wanted to get in the fight. I couldn't just, sit back and watch my brothers and sisters out there, getting after it or whatever, and me not be a part of it. So that's why I joined the Army. So wore my 101st Airborne shirt here because I served about 7 years at Fort Campbell. And I was the commanding general's crew chief, pretty prestigious for a Black Hawk crew chief. So I got to, and my general was badass. I had Tom Turner. He was not a politician. He was a bad mofo. He was an old guy, but he was a bad mofo, Ranger Tab. And he served after brain fart, but he served after Petraeus in the 101st as a commander. So he was pretty badass. And we had Frank Grippy was the CSM for the 101st. So you were talking about Anaconda, and Frank Grippy was on Anaconda. So
was Turner, was he before Campbell?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So Turner and Schlosser came after Turner. to Schlosser was actually a pilot. So that was one of the first times they had a commanding general that was a pilot for 101st Airborne.
Okay, so I was in Afghanistan 2010, and Campbell was Campbell the CG of the 101st then, and he came to my combat outpost, and because I was in the Iowa Army National Guard, and we were operating under the 101st Airborne, and I briefed Campbell on the border and on these enemy rat lines. I'm a young platoon leader, right? I had a Ranger tab, which he respected, but he was a long tabber and a short tabber. For the civilians, he had a special forces tab and he had a Ranger tab. And he was a very serious guy. He came out around Thanksgiving or Christmas earlier on in the year with General Casey, because my unit was taking a lot of contact with the enemy, and he was all smiles and saying, "Oh, you guys are getting after it. You're killing the enemy." When he came back the second time, it was a completely different guy. He was locked in. He was serious. And so I brief him on the map of these enemy rat lines where we're being ambushed. And he goes, "Hey, LT, do you want to effing show me?" And I'm like, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Get your stuff on. You're jumping on my Blackhawk." So I jumped on the Blackhawk with General Campbell, and that pilot, Jay, was unbelievable. It was the best Blackhawk pilot I've ever seen. We're doing Nap of the Earth. And
so I know that I personally know the pilot.
Oh, do you?
I won't dox him on here, but I personally know him. I used to fly with him. So.
Oh, you'll tell him this story. I'd love to say hi to him, because as a platoon leader, I was doing most of my operations on foot or in trucks, right? And we'd get in the Chinooks for like named operations, but like I had to brief the commander on these enemy rat lines. So when we took off, I'm trying to get my bearings, right? And I've got my Garmin on, and to give Campbell some credit, I mean, as a GO, he's got his Garmin on, and he's got his map, and he's back briefing basically all of the crew on what I just briefed him in my talk. And he did it almost verbatim. It was like he had a photographic memory. I couldn't believe how much he remembered my briefing. And so, but when we're taking off, I'm kind of freaking out because I'm looking at the terrain from a different perspective in the air, and I'm trying to get my bearings where I'm at. And by God's grace, I figured it out. Another funny part of the story, Jay, like I had to get a map when he told me. He said, "Hey, get your stuff on and get on Blackhawk." I had to find like my best map, and it was laminated on my wall in my office. So I take my Benchmade and I cut this map off my wall. I cut my finger. I'm bleeding all over. I put one of my gloves on top of it. Just a young PL, like, oh my gosh, I got to brief the GO. And we got up in the air. We did it, and he coined me. And by God's grace, that deployment was incredible. As a platoon leader, it was a dream come true. Very kinetic. By God's grace, didn't lose a single person. And we weren't playing it safe. We were getting after it. We were dropping a lot of bombs. And it was one of those deployments that you could be proud of, even though we understood that the mission was flawed. Like, we knew that there was no plan to win. Like, every year a new unit would rotate in, and that the plan was disjointed. The American people didn't know this, though. And even me, going into theater, I thought we were doing way better than we actually were until I got my boots on the ground.
Yeah. For me, I try not to focus too much on the politics, because if you do, it's just be frustrating for you. For me, it was about the guys and the girls I served with. So that's what it's all about for me. I don't really care about the politics. I went and I did my job, and I took care of the people around me, and that's the best thing that I could have done. So I try not to focus too much on that, because I don't want to be frustrated or whatever. And so that wasn't my job. I didn't. We weren't allowed to be too political or anything like that. So I love the people that I serve with, and you have these lasting bonds. I was talking to two of them, two of the people that I serve with today, so it's something different. We're brothers and sisters.
That brotherhood is like, you never skip a beat. Like with my guys, like I won't see a guy for like 5 years, and we're talking like we just saw each other last week. And even though the war was a disaster, I think everybody can look at the Afghan war, the Iraq war, the entire global war on terror and be like, you know what, that was a complete train wreck. There's still this sense of pride, and there's still this sense of joy. You know, I remember when I got home, I missed Afghanistan. And I remember, like, I missed my guys. I missed the mission. And I wasn't quite 30 years old. And I thought to myself, is the most significant part of my life behind me? Right? Because our unit did an incredible job. And I really struggled with that. And luckily, you know, I got out of that fog and had kids and had a lot more enjoyable moments. But that service to our country, like our generation of warfighter, were conflicted. And through that conflicted nature, we can kind of share these stories and let people know that we have to avoid these type of mistakes in the future, because if there's a real war, a real significant war that is really going to jeopardize the future of our country and freedom all around the world, we need to be able to have a fighting force that's ready. And if we keep on getting involved in all these stupid skirmishes and we're not taking care of our vets when they get home, there's going to be no force there, right? And if you indoctrinate them with this woke crap, like we saw with 4 short but very quick years of Biden and how much they were able to like radically change the military, America won't be in good shape. But luckily, you know, we have the support of the American people. People still look up to war fighters. They still look up to the military. But we have to really protect this institution because we almost lost it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was hard for me to watch, you know, as a first, I won't go too much into this, but like just going on base or whatever and seeing beards and, you know, ponytails hanging out or whatever, it just drove me nuts, because what would you expect the outcome of lowering standards to be? You're going to get less from your soldiers when you lower the standards. It never is a positive. And so I just, for the life of me, could never get an explanation from anybody that said, you know, how does this benefit anybody from lowering the standards? It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. And so thank God that they went back to the standards that they had before. And you know, it just, that was just extremely frustrating for me. But now we're getting back to the way things were, and you know, we have the most elite fighting force in the world. I have full confidence in our military, and you know, these kids come and they join or whatever, and if you hold them to the standard, they're going to maintain it and they're going to perform fantastic. And so, you know, don't sell them short, because they will perform for you. And I have no doubt, it doesn't matter, you know, Gen Z, Gen A, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you hold them to the standard, they will perform for you. And I have full confidence of that. So I'm not worried about us being overtaken by any country in the world. We have the strongest fighting force in the world. So, and we have the best technology. So just hold them to the standards.
Amen to that. You know, I was talking to somebody recently. They just got out of the military. Well, they came off active duty. They're in ROTC. And I said, you know, there's just something different about an American soldier. You know, and I trained with some foreign officers and soldiers, and there's just something in our DNA. Like, we have this killer instinct. We have this aggressive nature. And I think it just goes all the way back to the revolution. But we just would do these training exercises. I would notice that these other soldiers from different countries, it's like we had a different gear. And then there's great guys in Great Britain and Australia. There's no doubt about it. But collectively, on the whole, I always felt this difference, right? And it's this American like swagger, like this aura, that we are fighting for something that's bigger than ourselves. And if anybody wants to come to the United States, you've got to take this from us. And if you look at Great Britain, on paper, we had no shot. We had no business fighting Great Britain, but they were fighting for something they didn't really believe in or care about, the colonies, but we were fighting for freedom. And our founding fathers, they didn't just sit around and talk about it in Independence Hall. They were willing to pick up their muskets. They're willing to fight and die for this freedom, to die for this country. And that's what changed the course of history. And that's why we won the revolution. And it was like in our DNA, right? That we're rebels, we're outliers. Like we're these frontiersmen, we're these explorers. Like there's just something in our DNA. And if we lose this country, there's nowhere else to go. Right. And that's why these young men and women who are joining the military, like we have probably more of a dangerous world than we did before 9/11. Like I can't tell you, like, I don't think that the United States foreign policy has made our country safer. I think the world's even more volatile. So we're going to need these young men and women to understand where we came from. You know, Jay, you put it beautifully that we were able to serve in the greatest military in the history of the world. When we put on that uniform, it had an American flag on it. That's special, right? And we've got to maintain that killer instinct. We got to maintain that warrior ethos. We got to remind these guys of what they're a part of, right? Those battles in World War II, in the Revolution, like what we were willing to do on behalf of others for freedom. And I just feel, I mean, honored. Like I have the American flag all around me on my Veteran Action backdrop. I love this country. I love our veterans, and I look forward to, you know, continuing to work with guys like you, Jay, and all the grassroots that are dialing in here. You'll go to veteranaction.org. If you love America, if you want to put America first, if you want to take care of our veterans, and if you didn't have the chance to serve in the military, you can serve your country. You can serve veterans today by taking action, by calling your lawmakers, by emailing them, by posting on them on social media, telling them to support their veterans, to pass the Veterans Access Act, to support the Veterans Bill of Rights, that we have to take care of those men and women who served. We have to fulfill that promise that Abraham Lincoln had, where he said that we have to care for the men that bore in the battle, for their widow, and for their orphan.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. Well, I won't hold you much longer. I know it's getting late, and I appreciate that you spent over an hour with me tonight. Veteranaction.org is Mark's organization, and that's their website. You can follow them on X. You can follow them on YouTube. You got Rumble too. Rumble.
Yep.
What other platforms? You got TikTok and everything?
I just signed up for TikTok, Jay. Didn't want to, but Trump closed the deal. TikTok's going to be here for a long time. And, you know, Charlie Kirk and the great work he did at Turning Point, you know, watching what they did on TikTok, I just signed up Veteran Action there as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of conservatives don't like TikTok, and I understand their concerns there, but it's a platform. It's a place where you can reach. There are some fantastic conservatives out there on TikTok. I have a TikTok. I'm growing my TikTok. So don't be afraid to get on that platform and use it. So a bunch of different ways you can get in touch with Mark. You can see him on his personal page. You can see him on the Veteran Action page on X is one of his bigger platforms. You can see him. You'll see reposts by me. Insurrection Barbie reposts you a lot. She's a fantastic patriot too. I appreciate her, and just a great organization all around. And I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Yeah, Jay, let me say just thank you to everybody that's watching. You know, everybody that retweets what I do and shares what we're doing. Like I'm so appreciative for what you guys do. You know, it's Thursday night. You could be at home with your families, but you're deciding to listen to this stream about how we can help veterans. I can't do what I do without your action. You know, my voice is just one voice. But when I was in DC earlier this week, everybody knew I had an army behind me. And that's you guys watching this, taking action. So Jay, you've been my battle buddy since the beginning with Article 3 Project. You've been sharing our stuff on the Action Center. Now you're doing it with Veteran Action. I thank you so much for your friendship and really promoting this great work.
Yeah, anytime. I will promote the people out there that are putting in the work. If you're a good person, you're doing the right things for America, I'm going to promote you. I don't care, who it is. I've been given this gift, my platform on X, on TikTok, and so I'm going to promote you in any way that I can, because I'm not going to just let it go to waste. I'm not here to make money. I'm here to help our country, and so that's why I'll always promote you. And so we got 3,000 people watching us right now. So
wow,
pretty huge deal. That's just on X. So I don't know what it is on other platforms too, but at least on X, we got 3,000 people watching us. So that's pretty awesome. So thank you for coming and telling us about Veteran Action. Thank you for putting this together, and thank you for continuing to fight for our rights, because it's appreciated, and I know a lot of veterans are going to benefit from the work that you're doing right now.
Thank you, brother.
All right, Mark Lucas, appreciate you coming here tonight, and have a good night, and take care. Appreciate you, brother.
Good night.
All right, there you have it. Mark Lucas, veteranaction.org. Follow him. Take a look at his website. Take a look at his page. Send a message to your representatives. It's so easy. There's absolutely no reason for you not to. If you care about veterans, if you care about our country, please do that. It takes literally seconds. So without further ado, I appreciate you joining us tonight. I appreciate everybody that reposted this live, that joined us on multiple platforms. We're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, and we're on X as a main platform. So I appreciate everybody joining us tonight. Thank you, and have a good night. Y'all have a good one.